following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me just say, after viewing distorting the belt, they're proclaiming the real world champion. I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Woo! Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network, powered up by the Belly Up Sports Network of podcasts. Sit back and enjoy as we bring you the latest and greatest in the world of sports, everything from the Detroit Lions to the state of Michigan sports to around the country and around the world. So what are you waiting for? Let's get out there and let's watch the latest edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2023, January the 5th, 2023, or January the 4th. Sorry. January the 4th, 2023. How's everybody doing? Hope you're having a great start to your year. It was a great holiday season for me, except for Saturday night when Michigan couldn't quite get it done. Ever so close, but yet so far, huh? Good old Philadelphia special on that first series. We won't talk a whole lot about that. But anyways, great to be with you here tonight on this broadcast, first one of 2023. Really looking forward to having another great year with you here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. I invite you to subscribe to that, as well as you can get all of our broadcasts that we do along with the Extravaganza, and of course the ACHA Power Play, which will be back next week on Tuesday as we go to the road to Boston for the ACHA. We got a lot of great guests lined up for that as well. We got a great guest coming up here in a little bit. Had a chance yesterday to sit down and talk to the radio play-by-play voice of the Chicago Bulls, Chuck Swirsky. He stopped by, and we're going to talk to him about his career and how he got to where he's at. It was a fun conversation. Can't wait to share that with you. We'll have it here in a few minutes. So again, the way you can get in touch with the program is you can email me at sweetlou1965@yahoo.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou, or on Facebook, the Captain Lou Extravaganza, or as well as my personal page, which is Lewis Gamlin. And also want to remind you that not only will this production here be on my YouTube channel, which is the Captain Lou Sports Network, we are also going, the audio version will be downloaded on iTunes and the iHeartRadio app and TuneIn. You name it. We're going to be all over here in 2023. Can't wait. Some big, great things coming up this year. And we're excited to be a part of that because we are powered up by the Belly Up Network, the Belly Up Network of podcasts, bellyupsports.com. Check it out. Some great articles about everything that's going on in the world of sports, from the sports that the majors, the big four, soccer, you name it, even to the little ones that may not quite get a lot of attention. So before we get into our interview with Chuck Swirsky, just kind of want to give you an update. The latest we heard on Damar Hamlin is it sounds like he's improving. He's about 50% oxygen level. They're not saying a whole lot, which is understandable. And I know everybody knows about it that follows the world of sports. Just, I'm just like everybody else. We were watching Monday night. We're flipping channels back and forth. And, we turned ESPN on. We saw the opening drive for Cincinnati. It was still in the first quarter, and we turned the TV on, and there's all kinds of commercials. And we thought, wow, what's going on in Cincinnati? Must have had some kind of power outage or something. And then, I just happened to flip on social media for just a second. And they said the ambulance was heading to the field. So we turned it on, and you could see the somber mood. And boy, I tell you, it just shakes you to your core when you see something like that happen. And there's just no other words to explain it. I've never played pro sports, obviously. I've never played college sports. I was on a couple of high school teams. but we never experienced this. You know, it's like they've all said, you see broken bones, you see concussions, you see ACLs, all of that. And it kind of scares you a little bit. But, you know, something like this, there's no words for it. I've broadcasted a few games some hockey games where they've had to call out the stretcher and the ambulance to take a couple of players off the ice. One was a seizure, one was a bad hit into the boards. It shakes the team. You know, I did a football game last year, a high school game for Freeland here in Michigan, and a young man got knocked unconscious, and they had to hold the game for, oh my goodness, 45, 50 minutes to get an ambulance there with a stretcher and a backboard. And you see the players around him and nobody's moving. And you're shook. And as broadcasters, you're not close to the field, but you feel for the players. And, you know, you want to not say the wrong thing. You don't want to speculate. But you really, when you're in that position, you're speechless. You really don't know what to do. And, you know, you could see the emotion on the players. And it's tough. And, you know, everybody's still talking about it. It's amazing how a community, a sports community, and just the country in general are rallying around Damar Hamlin. And, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with their family as well. It really is. It kind of, we talk about it a lot. It puts things in perspective. Sports are just a game. They're sports. That's it. And, you know, you think about it, and you just never know. And to say at all it was T. Higgins' fault is ridiculous and stupid. The players that are saying that I don't like to use this word very often, but they're idiots for saying that, because it wasn't his fault. You know, I listened to Booger McFarland tonight before I came on, and, you know, he said the players, you know, they understand the risk of playing, but you never expect something like this. And so, you know, it really is. It's difficult to take. So our thoughts and prayers are out with them. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll talk more about that as we get later on in the show, when we do our playoff scenarios, as we look into what may happen with that game as it determines seedings. Right now, nobody really cares about that. I'm sure Buffalo, the players, don't care if they lose the number one seed. You know, their thoughts and prayers are with Damar Hamlin, you know, their brother. And, you know, we can't say enough about that. So anyways, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We got the Lions. They got prime time Sunday night. Can they do it? Will they have the opportunity to play for a playoff spot Sunday night? Or will they be spoiler? It's going to be a big game to get the national stage. Dan Campbell gets a chance to bite some kneecaps on Sunday Night Football. It took all year to get a Sunday night game. The Lions are there, and they get the Packers. It's going to be a fun game to watch. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. We're going to talk about all the scenarios with the playoffs. My surprise team that I think is going to sneak in to the playoffs. All of that coming up in a little bit. But right now, what I want to do, we had the opportunity to something that we want to do in 2023 is we want to get back into some profile interviews, you know, maybe not with what's going on in the world today, but kind of not really off the beaten path either, but something a little different. And had an opportunity. He put the invite out there, and I first met this gentleman way back in 1985 when I was in college, aspiring to be a big time broadcaster. And it was at a seminar that Loyola of Chicago hosted. And they had all kinds of aspiring college broadcasters that some of them have made it in the business. So some of them didn't take that path. But this gentleman right here that we're going to talk to, he's made a mark for himself. He was one of the guest keynote speakers, Chuck Swirsky. He's now the play-by-play voice of the Chicago Bulls. Let's take a listen to that interview yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to the Captain Lou Extravaganza. And again, we are very excited and pleased to be joined by a very special guest, the play-by-play voice of the Chicago Bulls, Chuck Swirsky. Chuck, thanks for taking time out today. How are you?
Lou, I'm great. I'm looking behind you, Lou, and you've got some outstanding pictures.
Thank
And
you.
I see your Lions helmet. And tell me about some of those pictures before we get into the X's and O's and nuts and bolts.
Well, obviously you can tell I'm a Michigan guy.
Yeah.
And I know that you spent some time in Ann Arbor and Detroit back in the 90s. I
Yes.
grew up a Michigan fan, a Lions fan, love hockey. The original 6 picture up there, that's my stepson's. He let me borrow this to kind of make my man cave look a little better. And then the puck right there is a Scotty Bowman puck. I just got that. They're doing a benefit for Vladimir Konstantinov, and I got a jersey and a puck and everything, and all for charity. And some of the other things, the other hockey picture, that's for the team that I do play-by-play for, Aquinas. They won ACHA national championship about 5 years ago, and that's just so much fun for me. It never gets old.
No,
I know it doesn't for you either. Being in the business.
So Lou, can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
So when I was at WJR in Detroit, and I did love my 4 years with calling Michigan basketball games. I did pre-F and post for Michigan football, did some intermission pre-post with the Red Wings when they won the Cup in 97 and 98. And also in 95, they played New Jersey.
Yes.
And that was really the appetizer for what was to come for the success a couple of years later. But I happened to MC a Detroit Athletic Sports Club event with Sparky Anderson and Scotty Bowman.
Oh,
I was at the table where both, and the two of them had mutual respect for each other. And the conversation they had, because one thing, I think Scotty Bowman, along with Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach, along with maybe Shula, George Halas, probably Belichick now. I mean, among the elite coaches of all time, John Wooden, Coach K. Those two, Scotty Bowman and Sparky Anderson, talked baseball, strategy, how you handle people. It was an amazing, and I just listened, Lou. I didn't say a word. I just was captivated by having two larger than life great leaders and coaches start talking back and forth, unrehearsed. Okay. There wasn't a script. It wasn't like, well, Scotty, let's talk about how you handle issues in the locker room over players who want more minutes or want more shifts or want more innings, or they're not getting enough at bats during the course of the week. It was just free flowing everywhere. And I'm going to tell you something, Lou. I think Scotty Bowman could have been an outstanding baseball manager.
Is that right? Wow. Yeah. That ties into the first question, actually, that I wanted to ask you, Chuck. Back when I started doing this way back, when I was at Central Michigan back about 1984, I was so nervous because who sat down next to me in the press room for dinner was George Blaha. I grew up listening to him doing the games back in the 70s up in the Upper Peninsula. How difficult was it for you, Chuck? I know you were in the business a little longer than that, but when you first had to start dealing with personalities that, you kind of idolized, or you thought, wow, this person is talking to me. How did you handle that? Was it trial and error? Talk a little bit about that, how it got maybe easier for you.
Well, that's a good question. So here's the story. When I was 12 years old, my father died. And my mom, we grew up in Seattle, and my mom's brother was a priest in Baltimore. Okay. And he was really technically in the Catholic order, what they call a brother of Mary, like a priest. And so he knew of a sportscaster in Baltimore at WBAL TV, Vince Bagley, an institution. He was the dean. He was like larger than life in Baltimore. He would be stopped everywhere. I lived with the Bagley family every summer. I would go to the television station every night with Vince because I wanted to be a sportscaster when I was 5 years young. So I'm embracing this, okay? I am eating this up. So I will never forget when the bubble burst and reality set in, because I always had this dream and vision of ball players bigger than life, that they never did it, you know, that they were like up there with St. Michael. And I'll never forget, on an off day, Mr. Bagley had to do some interviews at the old Memorial Stadium in Baltimore with the Orioles. And I went with him. He had me sit near the first base dugout while he was on the field. And I'm watching one of the ball players, I won't mention his name, big name ball player, come out to take, on an off day, batting practice in a cage. It was an off day. And he came out on the field with a cigarette in his mouth. And as a kid, being so impressionable, I thought, oh my gosh, the world is ending. Not knowing that, you know, they're human beings. They're people just like us. And this ball player happened to smoke. But I had never seen that. I was never exposed to that, Lou.
Oh, wow.
So from that moment on, along with reading Jim Bouton's Ball 4, and it really smashed the windows, so to speak, of this pristine image of players and everything. When he got into detail about Mickey Mantle and other players. And that's when really reality set in that, okay, you know what? I'm covering human beings like all of us who are flawed, have issues, some larger than others. But at the end of the day, we're human beings, and we have to accept the fact that we are so. Even though we, at a time in our lives, we don't want to, we have to.
Right. You know, Chuck, I looked, you started back in 1979. I was fortunate enough in 1981 to start in high school, and did a little part-time work at a local high school or a local radio station up in the Upper Peninsula where I grew up. And I can remember the days of doing play-by-play where we had to carry an extra 200 to 300 feet of phone wire to plug in. And, you know, it's obviously changed so much now with the internet and this and that. But some of those days, you know, you sat by the AP wire waiting for the latest stories.
Tell me about it.
You know, it's so
Lou,
much.
Everything's changed. Listen, even my time at WJR from 1994 through 98. So this is October of 94. I just joined the radio station from WGN. And I could have stayed at GN in Chicago, loved the people there, but the radio rights for DePaul, they were going to lose them. And technically speaking, they didn't have an interest in bringing DePaul's radio rights back because DePaul was pricing itself out of the market in Chicago, and the GM of the radio station said enough's enough. So I get a call from Ernie Harbaugh, very close friend of mine. I met Ernie when I was 11. And I stayed in touch with him until he passed away. I mean, we would speak every week. Wow. Sometimes twice a week. And so I'm in Detroit, and he says, listen, WJR has an opening. Send a tape. After that, you're on your own. I get it. I get the job. And so about a week and a half before Michigan's first game, we're at the Maui Classic. And Lou, you can look this up. We're playing we had 3 games, and the first game was against Tulane. 10 days before that game at the Maui tournament, I get a note in my mailbox from the director of radio engineering, Ed Buderbaugh, along with his assistant, Tony Butler. And they said, hey, we need to see you to talk about the upcoming Michigan trip and the season. And I said, great. So, you know, it's mid-November, and Lou, they bring me into the office, and they've got these trunks of like equipment and wires. And I had never engineered a game like that in my life. And I said, what is that? And Ed Buterbaugh says, that is going with you to Maui because you engineer your own games.
Wow.
I said, I've never done this at the level you're talking about. I mean, this isn't high school radio. This is WJR.
Right.
And he said, well, we don't send engineers. We don't, hire engineers on the road. Where Michigan football was like all hands on deck.
Yeah.
They had so many people in the broadcast booth that if Frank Beckman needed 10 cups of coffee, there were 10 different people bringing him coffee, Lou. So, basketball, different story.
Wow.
Even though basketball was really, really big in Michigan, so to speak, Fab Five, tail end Fab Five. So here I am, and I'm trying to learn. And I said, I don't even know if I can do this, seriously. And I said, how about if we do this? I'll go to the hardware store. I will buy blue tape, green tape, orange tape, black tape, and let me put it on the end of the wire. So if I have a male plug or a female plug, at least I'll know where they go. And sure enough, that's how I did it. The equipment box, and I had like 2 or 3 boxes, they were plastered with duct tape. And the only way I got through for 4 years with Michigan, before at the end of my run at Michigan, they discovered something called the ISDN line, which you're familiar with, Lou.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was so simple. But as it replaced these trunks, I had to FedEx these trunks to Penn State, Iowa, Illinois. Anyway, that's a taste, but that's the truth.
Wow, that gets the lesson to be learned there for everybody. Even nowadays, is you got to learn to be adaptable and learn how to learn on the fly. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Yep.
That's amazing, Chuck. One of the things I wanted to ask too, and I was talking to a young guy from Central about this. He does their hockey games. I remember my sophomore year at Central, I thought I knew it all, and I got humbled, man. And I walked in with a bunch of my peers, and I walked out of the class thinking, wow, I just got humbled. Yep. I mean, does that, and it still happens. I got out of the business for about 20 years and came back with the advent of the internet. I love this. It's not my quote unquote real job, but it's a hobby that's turned into more for me, but I'm always learning. And that's what I tried to tell him is there's always somebody out there that I think is always going to be a little bit better. And
absolutely.
You got to check your ego at the door, isn't it?
I mean, I listen, I don't have a problem with that because there are people more talented, more skilled. I don't compare myself to anyone.
That's great.
My competitive zeal for the business and the passion I have for the business is from within. I have no control over somebody sitting 3 seats down from me calling a game on their respective station. I wish them well.
Yeah.
I really don't have envy or jealousy. Early in my career, it bothered me that I would get bypassed for a job or that, hey, I work hard too, and I'd like a little appreciation. But you grow out of that. I think age has a lot to do with it. Wisdom. If you do have success, I think people understand that they do recognize what you bring to the table, but you are humbled, and I'm humbled every day. And so what I do, I just call a game the best of my ability. And at the end of the day, I have to look in the mirror.
Well, I can always tell just by your little vignettes that you do on Facebook, you've got the fire and the passion. And that's the other key. It's funny is talk about that, Chuck. My wife was saying, you don't want to get to where you don't like it.
Correct.
And I could see that in you and, see the pictures like the one you had last night with you and you and Bill Wennington, man. It was, you guys look like you just have such a blast together, man. It's gotta be key.
Yeah. Well, number one, Bill is awesome. I love Bill. He's a wonderful person. He reminds me of Lou. You ever see the movie Big with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
Where he puts the coin in and they're at like the county fair And he all of a sudden he's a kid, he's a man, but in a kid's body, Well,
Mhm.
Bill is a grown man, but he acts like a kid, like a 11, 12-year-old kid. And he has so much fun. And I have fun playing off him and vice versa. And, listen, you got to have fun. And the moment I no longer have fun, or if it becomes a chore, then I'm pulling the plug, because I want to wake up in the morning and I want to have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And so, I'm in my 25th year
Wow.
in the NBA.
Wow.
I've had an incredible opportunity to do what I want to do since I was a kid, wanting to be a sportscaster. And I look at every segment of my journey, and there were a lot of bumps in the road. There were a lot of points in my life where I was rejected by people. And, I was told to my face, you're not going to make it. I struggled. I can tell you every job, there was an issue or two where it was challenging, whether it was WGN, WJR, Raptors, Bulls. It was a challenge, and it's how you handle that challenge. In some cases, I did a good job. In some cases, I didn't. And that's how you grow and learn, through those mistakes.
Yeah. Chuck, I'd be remiss if I didn't get kind of your opinion. We all know what happened at the Buffalo-Cincinnati game last night, and from a broadcasting standpoint of it, I've been through it with doing high school games when you see a player that got knocked out and they're not moving, and you don't want to say anything. It's so easy to try, but you've been around the athletes for a lot longer than I have. And something like that has got to hit you hard. And it's tough to go on, even from a broadcasting standpoint, and that's got to be a challenge.
Well, I have never been in that position as you have. And for the announcers last night, I really didn't know what was going on until I was checking Twitter.
Yeah.
Because, we were calling a basketball game. And then when I started during timeouts scrolling and getting updates, and then, having seen a replay of it, and it was horrific, my thoughts turned to the attention of, number one, the young man, his family, the players, the NFL fraternity, because we are talking about, forget about, I could care less about the game.
Right.
I could care less about who won, what down it was. We're talking about a human being. We're talking about a 24-year-old young man. At the end of the day, he is the son, he's a cousin, he's a brother, he's a human being, he's a teammate. So all this stuff about, I could care less if they had played that game, or in my brain, forget about the game. The game is not important anymore. It's his life. So having seen some replays of shows that were aired right after the fact, I got to give credit to the entire ESPN crew. Yeah. Whether it was on the air, off the air, their sensitivity, they spoke from the heart, and they did it in a sincere, sensitive manner, where I think that they put the attention, rightfully so, on their experiences, but never took the spotlight of what this story is evolving minute by minute, off the young man. It wasn't, when I was, playing, it wasn't, it didn't get into that.
Chuck, I got to ask you, what's your secret to saying, it looks like you're in great shape, even with that Seattle Supersonics sweatshirt on? I love it. What's your secret to staying in shape, to be able to, be on the road with your schedule like that? You got to let me know a little bit of that.
Well, you know what? Number one, I think it's my metabolism.
Okay.
Some of it is stress, because, when you're you don't get a lot of sleep, and I haven't had a lot of sleep.
No.
We got in late, and my brain right now is just trying to, think about what I saw last night with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And, then you got to get refocused. We have a game tomorrow at home with Brooklyn. Then we go on the road to Philadelphia. Then we come home with Utah, and then we leave the next day for Boston and Washington. So I would say sleep, water, and eat right. And sometimes I don't do enough of the three.
Well, it's tough with Bill Wennington with that fried chicken I saw in that picture.
Yeah, how about
my God, I'd love to be able to have that diet.
Yeah.
Wow, Chuck, I know you're busy, and I know we're up against it. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot from you. And again, I'm not going to hold you to remember meeting me back in 1985 in Chicago for the Loyola Radio Conference.
Yeah, yep. I do remember. And you know what? When I was at Ohio U, a couple of Central Michigan notes. Number one, my son went to high school. In fact, I remember picking him up. I think we went to a game, but Corey Davis went to Wheaton South with my kids, and he's an outstanding young man. Is he still with the Jets? Or
yes, I believe he is.
He's a great kid, wonderful kid. And but when I was at Ohio U, I did a basketball game, and the coach was Dick Parfit.
Oh yeah.
And he was one of the nicest individuals because, I'm 20 years old, 19, 20, and, I'm doing basketball play-by-play for Ohio U. We go up to Mount Pleasant, and I introduced myself to him, and he was such a fine, fine gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
And their baseball program, when I was doing Ohio U, we played Central Michigan. They had a pitcher by the name of Chris Knapp.
Okay. Yep.
And he was tremendous. I think he was like, if not a first-round pick, second-round pick by the White Sox.
Okay.
In the 70s. But they had a really good baseball program.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they produced a pitcher, Kevin Tapani from the Upper Peninsula. I think he pitched for the Cubs for a while back in the late 80s, early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Well, hey, get some rest, Chuck. Again, I appreciate you taking time out. This has been an absolute treat. I've learned a lot. Good luck with the rest of the year with the Bulls, and keep it going, man. It's always fun to keep up with your travels. Thank you.
Right, well, wait, Lou, wait a minute.
Yeah.
One more thing. The jerseys behind you, the 7 and the 20. The 20 obviously is Barry Sanders.
Well, I got to tell you, it's Billy Sims.
Billy Sims.
Billy Sims, yeah, his Rookie of the Year insignia from 1980, and 7 is Chris Chelios, Blackhawks.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I had the privilege. My first job out of college, I sold advertising for the Holland radio station, and we went down to watch a couple of games at Chicago Stadium, and that to me was the best venue for NHL hockey. To this day, I still say that.
Oh my gosh. That Chicago Stadium was awesome. When the Red Wings would come in, or any original 6 team, wow.
Yeah, it sure was.
Lou, be well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate it. All right. That, of course, being Chuck Swirsky, the play-by-play voice of the Chicago Bulls. Very gracious with his time. Of course, we taped that interview yesterday, Tuesday. Right now, I believe they're getting ready to start that game against the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn going, I think, for 13 straight. So we want to thank Chuck Swirsky again for taking time out of his busy schedule. Always great to get some pointers. You're never too old to learn something. And it's always great to kind of take a step back in memory lane, if you will. And yeah, I saw him in 1985. Again, we were at a college radio conference down in Chicago, Loyola of Chicago. It was such an electric time back then. The Bears, of course, were the team, the monsters of the Midway. They had that record-setting defense. I think that weekend they played Dallas and beat them 44-0 or something. And it was great. And got to meet a lot of interesting people. And of course, Chuck as well. He was just kind of getting started with his first stint in Chicago, doing games and he had a sports talk show back then. So it was always fun. I always remembered him and kept up with him. And of course, when he came to Michigan in the 90s and did their college basketball play-by-play, and then was the man for sports rap out of WJR. There was him, you listen to Chet Kopic, even going farther back, Pete Franklin and some of the voices, and, always a treat to be able to listen, even where I grew up back in the 80s. That was, or in the 70s, rather. I'm kind of giving myself a little too much credit. Back in the 70s, listening to those voices. So always great to catch up with a great voice like Chuck Swirsky, and he's always gracious, and really thank him for coming on the show. You're watching the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network. We invite you to subscribe to our shows on YouTube, to subscribe to our network. Once we get to 50 subscribers, I know doesn't sound like a lot, but we've got a nice little gift prize for you. So check us out. That's the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. Our ACHA Power Play is on there as well. And we invite you to be a part of the show via Twitter. You can follow us at The Real Captain Lou. You can watch us live on our Twitter feed or on our Facebook page, the Captain Lou Extravaganza, or Louis Gamlin, or drop me an email, sweetlou1965 at yahoo.com. Well, hey, let's get right into the crux of our next part of our show, the Lions. Speaking of Chicago, speaking of the Bears, that was ugly on Sunday. If you're a Bears fan, if you're a Lions fan, couldn't have been any better. Shaking off that bad game against Carolina, where Detroit had an opportunity to really have destiny in their own hands. We're not going to go back to that game. We're going to talk about Chicago real quick. The Lions came out. They gave up that opening drive to the Bears, but their defense flexed their muscle. And 105 yards for Justin Fields in the first quarter. But after that, they were able to contain him. I know he kind of strained his hip. He's not going to play this weekend, but I'm not going to take anything away from the Lions in that game plan. Their offense came to play. They pummeled a inferior Bears defense, winning that one going away 41-10. So, you know what? That just means that the Lions now, the table is set. They're going to need some help. But you know what? As being a Lions fan, we're just glad to have a relevant game, and we talked about it. They're in prime time. Sunday night, 8:20. They'll know their fate by then, obviously, with the playoff scenario. The Rams have to beat the Seahawks for the Lions to get in. So if the Rams beat the Seahawks and the Lions win, they're in. I know it's a lot to ask. Going to Lambeau, January 8th, usually it's about 0 degrees. As of right now, it's not going to be 0 degrees. It's going to be about 25 at kickoff, which, that's balmy, if you ask me, for Lambeau Field in January. So the scenario is set. The Lions, I think, can score on Green Bay. But boy, oh boy, Green Bay's won 4 in a row. They're clicking at the right time, and they've rediscovered their running game, which kind of scares me a little bit. The Lions right now, as we speak, are a 4.5-point underdog going into that game. It's about right. Both teams are 8-8. The Lions are 7-2 in their last 9 games after starting out 1-6. So to get in this position is absolutely amazing. And hats off to the Packers. They were 4-8. We figured both teams were going to be playing their backups in week 18. Figured Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to play. It was going to be Jordan Love because they weren't going to have anything to play for. But there you go. The Lions are 4.5-point underdogs. The over-under right now is 49, in case you can't figure that out with what's on the screen right now. So from a betting standpoint, if you do a parlay and you take that, you got plus 275. Under 49 is 230. If you're going to go with Green Bay, getting the 4.5 or laying the 4.5, you can see it right there. The scenarios are there. This is a tough game to call, man. I'm a little worried as a Lions fan. Obviously, number one, going to Lambeau. Number two, you got Aaron Rodgers. I think Detroit can contain him. What worries me about the Lions is their rush defense. I think Aaron Jones could have a pretty good day. That's going to be the X factor for the Lions. Obviously that and Aaron Rodgers. I think this is going to be kind of a shootout. I think there's going to be over 49 points. The question is, which way do we lean on this one? Rivalries aside, Aaron Rodgers, his smugness, it's very easy to dislike him. And anybody who knows me knows I don't like the guy, but I can't take away how good he is. And when it comes to getting ready for the playoffs, he's there. But he laid a goose egg in the playoff, or when they got a home game in the playoffs last year. This is, in essence, a playoff game. If the Packers win, it doesn't matter what Seattle does. They're in. If the Lions win, the Packers are out. So basically, if the Lions win and the Seahawks win, the Seahawks are in. So this is a playoff game. Now, there's people complaining because they're not playing at the same time. Well, you know who they want in prime time. They want Aaron Rodgers. They want to do anything they can to get the spotlight on Green Bay because they're one of the marquee teams. And it's to Detroit's benefit, I think. Detroit's going to come to play. I honestly think this isn't the same old Lions. The problem is, and we've talked about this for how many weeks, that game against Seattle that they had in the bag at home is going to come back and bite them right in the ass. They win that game, we're not having this conversation. It's going to be a must-win either way for either team. Or even if the Lions and Packers tie. So, I mean, that's just the way it goes. So what we need, obviously, is Seattle to lose. If they do that, then we got a shot. Then a winner and a tie, then we're in. Because we got the tiebreak over Green Bay when it comes to divisional records. So there you go. But I don't think it's going to be a tie. My heart says Lions, but my head is leaning towards Green Bay. So that's kind of the parlay right there. Those are the parlay bets, as you see on the screen right there. So what can I say? Teaser bets last week, we went 2-1. Of course, we got the Lions 6-point teaser correct. The Giants bet we took a loss on because it went on the under. I don't know what the hell I was thinking on that. Seahawks, I got the under. So 2-1 last week. If you tail along with us, you want a little bit of coin. We're 25-13 on our 6-point teaser bets. We'll give those a little bit later on. So getting back to the Lions game, my keys to that game for the Lions, go with they just got to keep rolling on offense. If they get a turnover, they can't get flustered. Is it going to be the team that showed up against Carolina that got blown out early and had to try to scramble to come back? If that's the case, they're not going to do it against Green Bay. No way. I think it's going to be ugly if that happens. I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a one-score game. But I just think it's the Packers. They've got that home field advantage. They're on a roll right now. And, God, I want Detroit to win. I really do. I'm not going to be putting any money on this game because I'm not going to want to watch it if I do that. I'm staying away from this game. So I'm not even going to do a teaser bet on this game. I'm staying away. I put the options on there if whatever you want, the way you would go. I'm going to just do this as a fan. I'm not going to touch this game from a betting standpoint. I figure I'm on a roll with it. I'm just going to stay away. Love my Lions. I just pray to God that they have an opportunity to get into the playoffs. If Baker Mayfield can do the Lions a favor and help beat the Seahawks on Sunday afternoon at 4:25 Eastern. So by the time kickoff comes around at 8 o'clock or 8:20 at Lambeau, the Lions will have something in it besides being a spoiler. It wouldn't break my heart. If that was a scenario, I'd love to see Detroit knock Green Bay out. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a Packers fan. Everybody knows that. But, let's hopefully it's a game where both teams have some skin on it and Detroit has an opportunity to go into Lambeau and win and get that playoff game either in Minnesota or in San Francisco. I'm hoping it's Minnesota. San Francisco scares the hell out of me right now. I think they're the team to beat in the NFC. They are playing on all cylinders, even with Brock Purdy at quarterback. Now, if Jalen Hurts comes back and plays, maybe that's a different story. I know he'll be back for the playoffs, but who knows? NFC and AFC playoff scenarios, I pretty much have laid those out for you in the NFC. You've got, again, it all comes down to Seattle first and foremost at 425 against the Rams. They win. They win. They knock Detroit out. Green Bay will win. They're in. They've knocked Seattle out. That's pretty basic right there. The Giants have clinched a playoff spot. The worst they could do is the 6th seed. They'll probably end up playing Minnesota. San Francisco wins the tiebreak over Minnesota based on conference wins if they stay tied. Philadelphia, they're the number 1 seed. They're right now looking at a bye. Dallas technically could still possibly win that division, but more than likely they're going to get the 5th seed. Tampa's not going anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Brady only plays a couple of series in that game. They're going to play each other in the first week. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys win that game. I don't know, but until I see Tom Brady lose a divisional playoff game, then I won't bet against them. But that's kind of what we're looking at right now. The AFC, obviously, it starts out with what happened on Monday night. Right now, Kansas City and Buffalo are tied in the loss column. Kansas City with a half-game lead. Cincinnati at 11-4. That's what made that game very, very big on Monday night. Are they going to finish it? Are they going to start it over? That's the $100 million question right now. I heard talk this afternoon where they may stagger the times. There's so many different scenarios. I've heard where they're going to push back the playoffs a week and have a standalone game in week 19. I heard they might do the NFC wildcard round on Sunday and Monday and do the Buffalo-Cincinnati rematch on Saturday in week 19, then do a week for just the AFC playoffs, and then, everybody else, and take that week away there's a 2-week break between Super Bowl and the NFC and AFC championship games. And I also heard they might just push back all the playoffs a week. They've got a little bit of flexibility. And I just have to think deep down, they're probably going to play that game. I'm not saying if they should or shouldn't. It's an awful big ask for the Buffalo Bills players to play that game right now. It's a big ask to have them play on Sunday, even though with DeMar Hamlin, their brother, they don't know if he's out of the woods yet. It sounds like he's improving. A lot of question marks there. That's for the number 1 seed. Those teams have clinched their divisions. Cincinnati, there's still an outside shot that they would lose the division to Baltimore. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to win that division. Baltimore, to me, is probably going to be the 6th seed. The Chargers have the playoff, the tiebreak over them. As the seeds sit right now, that's how that would be. The 7th seed, this is where things get interesting. And I listened to this scenario this afternoon, and I read up on it, and it wouldn't surprise me. Don't be surprised if the Pittsburgh Steelers get that 7th playoff seed. New England right now is 8-8. They go into Buffalo. That's a no-win situation right there. I'm sorry. If they play that game on Sunday, Buffalo is going to win that one hands down. They need it. That's going to put the Patriots at 8-9. The Jets are playing at Miami. Miami's going to start Skylar Thompson at quarterback. I'm not particularly sold on that. The Jets could beat Miami. That would put them both at 8-9. Then you've got Pittsburgh sitting there at 8-8. They play Cleveland. Cleveland's not that great. They did us a favor, us Detroit fans, by knocking Washington pretty much out of the playoffs. But can they play spoiler 2 weeks in a row? Pittsburgh wins that game. They're 9-8. That's my prediction right there to get that 7th and final seed in the AFC. The Pittsburgh Steelers with a rookie quarterback. Who would have thought? It just goes to show you how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is. It's incredible. But that's my prediction. That's who I think is going to win the playoffs or get that 7th seed in the AFC. Just kind of a gut feeling, call it a gut feeling, whatever you want to do. That's kind of what I feel is how that's going to all turn out. Let's look at my 6-point teasers. Locks of the week. Saturday night, Jacksonville taking on Tennessee. Jacksonville right now is a 6.5-point favorite. That kind of scares me a little bit. But you take 6 points, you make them pretty much a money line, minus a half a point. And with Josh Dobbs starting at quarterback for Tennessee, I'm going to go with the under on this one. It's not quite even money, but it's a good bet. I'm going to take Jacksonville minus a half a point and under 46.5, minus 105. My other one, Dallas is taking on Washington, I believe. And, Washington, they're a mess. Let's face it. Heineke's going to start. And then I think Sam Howell's going to play. They could use Thurston Howell. They're not going to score any points, but they're going to score enough. Dallas, they need this game. They got an outside shot at possibly winning that division, as crazy as it sounds. They're a 6.5-point favorite on the road. I'm going to take them minus a hook and over 34.5. That's minus 115. I forgot to write that in there. I'll see if I can maybe fix that real quick. I'll edit that. There we go. So those are my two favorites right there for 6-point teaser locks of the week. Dallas minus half, over 34.5. And if you do the super teaser where you combine both of these, you get a little chunk of change, plus 265. Not bad. I think that's what I'm going to lean on this weekend for my teaser bets, my 6-point teaser locks. And maybe you can jump on board with those as well. Just 2 this week because I'm not touching that Lions game one way or the other. So maybe you can get a little bit, make a little bit of money on that. Those are my 2 teaser lock bets of the week. So again, look at the schedule for week 18 in the NFL. Kansas City and Vegas kick things off on Saturday. Tennessee and Jacksonville, the nightcap. That second game, that's for all the marbles in the AFC South. Jacksonville wins, they're in. Tennessee wins, they're in. They win the tiebreak. I like Jacksonville at home in this one. They're playing some good ball right now. Tennessee's in free fall. It's just one of those years where, they're just not clicking. I'm going to take Jacksonville in that 6-point teaser bet. Kansas City trying to get the number 1 seed. Vegas, they can't hold a lead. So the best thing for Kansas City to do, spot LA a 10-point lead in the second quarter. Then they'll come back. So there you go. Games on Sunday, obviously Green Bay, Detroit, the nightcap. That's the marquee game, if you will. Baltimore at Cincinnati could have some juice as well. You got a lot of backups starting this week. Again, the Rams taking on Seattle at 425. Seattle, everything to play for to have a chance of getting into the playoffs. Dallas and Washington, of course, at 425. Cleveland at Pittsburgh's got a little juice. The Jets in Miami. We talked about New England at Buffalo. There's a lot riding on that game too. That's a 1:00 game. Some big games on Sunday to close out the regular season in the NFL. Hard to believe the regular season's over. Well, for the most part, we're still waiting word on Buffalo and Cincinnati if Week 19 is going to materialize in that game. If they're going to start it over, they're going to call it a tie, whatever. We haven't gotten word yet. I suspect we'll have word on that by the end of the week. So a couple of things to wrap up here before we call it a weekend here, or week here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Was this the best college football semifinals we've seen? Being a Michigan fan, it was tough. Obviously, Michigan, first play of the game, they run down and get first and goal. You think, here we go, baby. But they couldn't punch it in, and then they ran the Philly special, and then they go right down and score. TCU does 2 pick sixes, but what a finish. A little controversy in the end. Wow. So my second question, does TCU stand a chance? I think they do. I think they're going to have to play even more physical if that's possible against Georgia. Georgia, they're lucky. But maybe that's the punch in the mouth they needed. And, we always talk about it. Great teams survive when they get punched in the mouth and they win. Great teams, they rise to the top. They got a little help from the officiating. I'm not going to blame that for either game. Although it was a touchdown in that Michigan game. Just saying. He didn't control it till he got over the goal line, but we're not going to go there. Was it a target at the end of the game? Textbook, yes. I don't think that would have made a difference either. But that hit on Marvin Harrison where the flag was picked up, come on. Wow. To me, that was so egregious. Just couldn't believe it. That took a potential touchdown away from Ohio State. They ended up having to kick the field goal. And then, of course, they missed the field goal at the end of the game. I don't know. I'd still go back, though. I think it was 8 hours of riveting college football. If you like scoring, boy, you had it. Drama, back and forth, up and down. This Georgia TCU game is going to have to take an awful lot to match and beat what those semifinal games were all about. And this is what we wanted, and that's what we got. We got drama. And you can make an argument about maybe Alabama being better than some of those teams. And I don't want to hear the choke job anymore. Michigan fans, non-Michigan fans, Jim Harbaugh choke. No. Paul Feinbaum, Racine, whoever, Heather Dinich, get out. You want to talk about a choke job. If you pontificate about Alabama deserving to be in the Final Four, they choked against Tennessee. They choked against LSU. That's 2 choke jobs for Nick Saban in one season. Michigan deserved to be there. Ohio State deserved to be there. Don't give me Tennessee should have been there. Don't give me Alabama, USC. No. You want to talk about a choke job? Ask Lincoln Riley. Maybe he'll remember to bring his defense to a big game next year in 2023. Maybe he'll learn something from that, huh? Who knows? Yeah. So, anyways, last thing tonight, it starts up again. What's that Clash song? Should I stay or should I go now? Is Jim Harbaugh gone? Has he reached his ceiling at Michigan? Why do I think he has? But man, he's going to be loaded coming back. I don't know. I don't think he's going. You hear reports where he's been offered $20 million a year by Denver. If that's the case, I'd take it. If you're going to pay me $20 million, he's going to be 60 years old. There's a lot of aspects of the college game that I know he doesn't like. The NIL, the transfer portal. Everybody's got to deal with that now in college football. And it's just like the pros now. I think there's less headaches in taking a professional football job. But he's got some unfinished business at Michigan. He's going to have a loaded team coming back. The transfer portal has been good to Michigan for next year. They're going to be right in the mix in the Big Ten. They're sitting pretty good. Wow, he's got a shot. Let's face it. You can say what you want about not winning this year. They got a legit shot at going to the playoff next year again because they got Ohio State at home. They're going to be playing a Michigan State team that's down. Penn State, they're going to be a bunch of new players there. USC and UCLA are not coming to the Big Ten yet. They don't play Iowa next year. Michigan's going to be right there. They're going to be right there whether you think so or not. But man, where there's smoke, there's fire. Again, Carolina, Indianapolis, Denver. People are saying maybe even Chicago, for God's sakes. That's how fickle the coaching carousel is and the profession is now. I just don't see him leaving. But never say never, especially with Jim Harbaugh. And, he did well in the pros before, got to the Super Bowl. Is this their ceiling? I think Michigan, they're going to be back next year. I think they're going to be right there in the hunt. They got a legit shot at doing well in the playoffs. And I know that burns inside him, but he's quirky. You never know. All I got to say is, Ward Manuel, you're going to have to open up that pocketbook because I know if he stays, he's going to want to be paid more than his counterpart up in East Lansing, Mel Tucker. That's for sure. As far as the championship game goes, boy, I would love to take TCU. I can't do it, but I'm going to go with the 6-point teaser. I forgot to put it on here. I don't think I've got it on here. My teaser bet, nope, I don't have it. I'm going to take the over and TCU plus 18.5. It's plus 120. That's easy money. I think they can stay within 18.5 points. That's going to be a good game in LA. I'm not going to stay up and watch it all probably, because that means midnight. I got to get up early, but it's going to be a good game. It's worth watching anyway. So, well, that's going to do it here tonight on the Extravaganza. I want to thank, again, Chuck Swirsky, the play-by-play voice on the radio dial for the Chicago Bulls, stopping by and chatting with us. Awesome conversation. If you missed it, check out the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. The show will be on there. You can watch it anytime you want. Subscribe to our network, the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. We've got all of our shows that we do. Next week, the ACHA Power Play will be back live, 7 o'clock. We've got some great guests lined up, including Frank DeCristofaro, the head coach of Indiana Tech, ranked in the top 5. We got a lot more coming there. We'll have some more guests lined up as well. And another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza next Wednesday night, same time, 7 o'clock. The playoff scenarios, for the most part, will be set. We will probably have an answer on the Buffalo-Cincinnati situation. We will be ready to go talking NFL playoffs next week. So, hey, we're just getting started. The sprint to Boston with the ACHA Power Play, their national championship playoffs 2 months from now. It's getting fun. We're glad to be a part of it. We're glad that you're a part of it here with us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So again, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. Join us next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock for this show. Next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock for the ACHA Power Play. Captain Lou saying, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving. And as always, keep your minds open. Oh, before we go, all right, Steve Roth says, go Eagles. Hey, they're going to get that bye. They're going to get Jalen Hurts rested up. I do believe that. So I want to thank Steve for joining us, watching us on the show tonight as well. Hey, everybody, again, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the Captain Lou Sports Network. So long.